Alright mate, how you doing? Welcome back to another episode of IMO. Gareth Southgate has released his 23-man England squad for the World Cup in Russia this summer 2018. I'm going to give you my thoughts on it now. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to look at Gareth Southgate's selections, assess them, say what I think he's done right, what I think he's maybe done wrong, and then at the end of the video I'm going to give you my 23-man squad if I was in charge of England, which I'm not. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. Starting off with the goalkeepers. This was a big controversial talking point as to whether Joe Hart was going to make the squad or not. He hasn't, okay? He's gone with Butland, he's gone with Pickford, and he's gone with Pope. Now, Butland and Pickford were always going to go. It was really between Pope and Hart. Ironically, it was between the best English keeper in the league this year, which was Nick Pope, and Joe Hart, who definitely wasn't the best. Southgate has come out and said he's picked the best three keepers in the country this year, which I do not disagree with. I think he was right to do so. The question on Joe Hart was whether you took him as the third keeper, because the third keeper, and sometimes the second choice keeper, don't play a single minute in the tournament. They're just there as backups. It's very unlikely you're going to use the third keeper. So sometimes managers will take a third keeper that's going to be a positive impact on the dressing room. Maybe has a certain amount of experience that can help improve and coach, in a way, the first choice keeper. Now, the fact that Southgate hasn't chosen Joe Hart means that he doesn't feel Joe Hart's impact on the dressing room is that important. Despite the fact that Joe's been at the last three England tournaments, we've been pretty rubbish at the last three England tournaments, so maybe he wants to make a fresh start. He said the door's not closed for Joe Hart. He could play again. That's by and by for me right now. I think he's taken the best three keepers. Whether he's going to give Nick Pope a chance, I'm not sure. I think maybe he should, particularly in the friendlies warming up, because for me, he was better than both Butland and Pickford this season by quite a way. It's just whether he wants that little bit more experience. And even Butland, who's the most experienced of the three keepers, hasn't got a load of England caps to his name. So it's going to be interesting to see which keeper Southgate actually picks. Maybe he does rotate. I don't know. It's unlikely because you want to have like a solid base, a foundation of players that are used to playing together. So he'll probably pick one. He could just be taking Nick Pope for the experience so he can get used to the environment for maybe next tournament. And that's a vibe you're going to see a lot in this Southgate squad because in general, his MO and England's MO right now is not necessarily to go and challenge at this 2018 World Cup. It's really building towards the 2022 World Cup where we believe that not only a lot of our best players will peak, but also the changes we've been making behind the scenes in the England sort of training from the youth age will start to come through. So Southgate has made certain selections in his squad with the next World Cup in mind, in my opinion. Either way, I don't have a big issue with this. I think if you'd taken Joe Hart as a third choice, no one would have been disgusted by that, but he has gone with the best three options. Let's move on to the defence. The big name here is Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's made the squad despite never having played for England before, but you can't really argue this selection. He's been really good for Liverpool in recent games, particularly in the Champions League semi-final, first and second leg against Roma. These are big pressure environments, which prove that he can cope with pressure, which is going to be similar, albeit maybe a little bit higher, at the World Cup. International football is a different kind of football. The tactics are quite different. Trent Alexander-Arnold hasn't got a lot of experience there, but it remains to be seen whether Southgate is actually going to play him. He might just be there going along for the ride as an option to come in for Trippier perhaps. It looks like Kyle Walker's going to play as a third centre-back in a back three. Trippier is the right wing-back. So Alexander-Arnold, again, might not get a lot of game time in this tournament, but he's definitely thinking about 2022 with this decision, and Alexander-Arnold deserves it. I wouldn't have had him in my squad personally. It doesn't mean it's the wrong decision. It just means for me personally, I would have gone with people more likely to play and people that I knew could do it at that level, which we don't actually know about Trent yet, although I'm sure he can. He went with Gary Cahill, which is an interesting one of the most experienced players in the squad, but he hasn't been playing a lot for Chelsea of late. You can say the same about John Stones though. John Stones was always going to be included, but he hasn't been a first choice for City this season at times. Danny Rose is an interesting inclusion because he's hardly played for Spurs this season. He's gone with him over Ryan Bertrand, who's played a lot more, but Ryan Bertrand in a poor Southampton team. Danny Rose was part of, when he played, a very good Spurs team. And Harry Maguire made the cut as centre-back as well. Listen, he's had a good year. Leicester haven't necessarily had an amazing year. I mean, they've had okay, they're kind of mid-table, but he's been good. He's been good enough to get in the squad. I personally might have gone with someone like Tarkowski from Burnley over Maguire, but I think that's really just down to personal opinion. They're both decent. They both had good years. I'm glad one of the lesser known and less experienced centre-backs has made the squad because they deserve it on form. Obviously, Kyle Walker and Kieran Trippier were always going to make the squad. They're easy decisions. Trippier can play right back, right wing back. Kyle Walker can play right wing back, right back, and even maybe centre-back now. I am actually happy he's included both Ashley Young and Fabian Delph. I would have had him in my squad as well because we've known for a while now that Young's versatile, has reinvented himself as a fullback, can play on either side. Whether he starts or not remains to be seen, but he's a good option to have off the bench or if there's an injury. But I do believe there is a chance Ashley Young could start over over Danny Rose, you know. It depends what Danny Rose does in the warm-up games and how fit he is. And Fabian Delph, well, a couple of years ago, when I made my reaction to the Euro 2016 squad, my title was like, Delph? Question mark, exclamation mark. I couldn't believe he'd made it. But Delph has shown he's got other sides to him this season. He can play as left-back. He's done it very well at times for Pep Guardiola's title-winning Man City. So, the fact that he's reinvented himself in that way as well makes me think he's a perfect player to take to this squad. Not as a starter, maybe not even as a sub, but in case there's injuries and you need to bring him in, he can play in a number of positions. It's the same reason why I probably would include a fit Antonio. I actually don't think Antonio is at the same level as most of the England squad. I don't think he's as good as them, but he can play about 5 positions, which means he's a great 23rd man to have in the squad, just in case, even if he plays 0 minutes. The fact is, he's not been fit enough, he's not been good enough this year, which is why he didn't make the squad, and I agree with it. But Delph and Young both represent versatile players who are really good squad players. Eric Dyer was always going to go in there again as a centre mid, but also as a centre back, because we're playing 3 centre backs most likely. That is going to be really useful for England. I expect him to play most minutes in the tournament. Jordan Henderson, not everyone's favourite player, but there's a chance he might be captaining us this summer. It'll be between him and Harry Kane. I think that one of them's going to be England captain. And look, he's shown a leadership side recently in helping Liverpool get to the Champions League final. He definitely had to be in the squad, and I think he'll probably start. Ruben Loftus-Cheek is the interesting inclusion, really, in midfield. Young, obviously, had a good season on loan at Crystal Palace. I like him. I think he's strong. I think he's powerful. I think he's got a little bit about him, and I think he could go on to do things at the international level. I would have included Loftus-Cheek. However, I have got a little bit of a gripe with the midfield of England because I think we are lacking creativity. I think Gareth Southgate has made a mistake in not taking one of either Jack Wilshere or Jonjo Shelvey. Now, both these players come at a cost, okay? Jack Wilshere, we know, is an injury risk. There's a chance he plays in the warm-up game, he's injured, he's out. I think ultimately that's why he's not been selected, because I think he's good enough. He's definitely good enough. And this England team, whilst it's young and it's exuberant and it's exciting, it lacks creativity coming from the centre of midfield. Eric Dyer and Jordan Henderson, they're very functional midfielders. They'll do a job for you. They'll be solid. They'll pass the ball sideways and back and keep possession. But are they going to get any assists? Are they going to play those cutting passes? People like Jonjo Shelvey and Jack Wilshere, they do that. Now, Jonjo Shelvey is a whole different kind of risk. His temperament can sometimes get the better of him. He's the kind of player, in my opinion, that could come out one game for England at a World Cup and do something unbelievable, get man of the match and win us the game, but equally could also just come out and get a red card and become an absolute enemy of the state. When he comes back to England, everyone would hate him. It's a little bit dangerous taking someone like Jonjo Shelvey, and I think that's why he's not been given the chance at international level. And I understand that, but we lack players in his position, which I think maybe is why we had to make an exception this time round. I think Loftus-Cheek is a great inclusion. I'm not sure whether he can do what Shelvey and Wilshere can do, though. Personally, I would have taken Loftus-Cheek and Jack Wilshere. Dele Alli, obviously, is always going to get in there. He's going to start every game, I think. And Jesse Lingard's had an unbelievable season. Whether he starts or not, I'm not sure. But what Jesse Lingard could be is an amazing option off the bench, depending on what formation Southgate goes with. Raheem Sterling has had probably his best season ever in the Premier League. I think he'll start. I think there's a chance Rashford, who I thought at the start of the season would be starting for England, because he had a really good beginning of the season with Manchester United. But since Sanchez has been signed, Rashford's played a lot less. So I think Rashford's probably going to come out the starting 11 now. And even though Vardy got 20 goals, I don't expect Vardy to start. I think Southgate's going to play Kane and Sterling up front together. Sterling in that kind of bit more free role with Dele Alli in behind. That's what I think he's going to do. But Vardy off the bench, Lingard off the bench could be good. Obviously, Harry Kane was always going to go. He's our talisman, could be our captain. If we can get him firing the way he does for Spurs, that could propel us quite far into this tournament, I do believe. And Rashford is a really good, young, exciting option off the bench. I love Rashford, and I think he could start as well. Sometimes he'll start, sometimes he might not. We'll have to see. Danny Welbeck's an interesting one. He's a manager's favourite, Danny Welbeck. They tend to love him because he works hard. He can play out front, he can play out wide. But he's just not that good, is he? I mean, he's good, he's not great. And he's not exciting. And he's not been on unbelievable form for Arsenal. This is where I would have thought about maybe including someone a little bit off-piste. I'm talking about Jadon Sancho at Dortmund. I'm talking about maybe Ryan Sessegnon at Fulham. Okay, Sessegnon's only been playing in the Championship. Maybe it's too early for him. You don't want him to be like a Theo Walcott who gets included in a squad and it ends up being a bit of a waste of time and doesn't really help their international career. But Sancho has been doing bits for Dortmund, to be fair. There was even rumours we could go for Leon Bailey, who's currently obviously in the Bundesliga as well. Playing for Leverkusen, there's a number of countries we believe that he could still kind of commit to. One obviously being Jamaica, but there's rumours that he could be eligible for England. We're not sure if that's true, and ultimately Southgate's not picked him. But Leon Bailey has had a very good season this year, and he could have been the player that could have taken Danny Welbeck's spot if he'd been eligible. For me, there is someone else I would have considered perhaps over Danny Welbeck, who I'll get onto when I show you my squad. But in general, what do I think of Southgate's squad? I don't think it's had a mare. I don't think it's terrible. There's nothing in there that made me go, wow. Trent Alexander-Arnold was always an option. He'd been playing well. Loftus-Cheek probably deserves it, you have to say. Danny Welbeck, I'd say, is the one you could probably argue with the most. But in fairness to him, he's got 37 caps for England, scored 15 goals. That's not that bad, to be fair. That's not a bad record. A lot of those goals would have come in qualifying. I hope he proves me wrong, and if he does get on the pitch, which I think he probably will at some point, can have a decent tournament. But I definitely would have, obviously, Kane, Vardy and Rashford all ahead of Welbeck in the pecking order. And he didn't go with Joe Hart, which I think is fine. I honestly think it's fine. As a West Ham fan, I've seen a lot of Joe Hart this season. He's not been the same since Pep mugged him off and got rid of him at City. I think it was a bad decision to go to Torino as an English-speaking goalkeeper, not speaking the language in a foreign league with Italian and foreign defenders in front of you, and also playing in a team that was only a mid-table team at best. You're going to concede goals. It's going to affect your confidence. It certainly did that. He's come to West Ham, another team that's going to concede plenty of goals, and he's made errors. He's made a fair few errors in the season. Fair play to Nick Pope, who deserves it. But the time has come for me to reveal my 23-man squad. Let's take a look at it and see how different it is to Southgate's. I actually made this on a Telegraph website, and I made it before Southgate's squad came out, okay? So I didn't know if Joe Hart was going to be in there. I didn't know if Alexander-Arnold was going to be in there. I made it before, because I purposely didn't want to be influenced by Southgate's decision. So this is the squad I went with a couple of days ago. So this is my team, right? Starting off with the goalkeepers, I went with the same keepers as Southgate. I think he's made a good decision. No Hart, I'm fine with it. Going into defence, I didn't go with Maguire. I did go with Tarkowski of Burnley. Either way, I think it was the right decision to go with one of the younger, less experienced centre-backs and give him a chance at the World Cup. I also had Cahill for the experience. I had Phil Jones, I had John Stones. Trippier and Walker were obvious choices. It was the left side which was interesting. Now, neither me or Gareth Southgate went with Ryan Bertrand. However, he went with Danny Rose. A fit, fully firing Danny Rose starts left back or left wing back for me personally. I think it's the best we've got right now. But he's not been in that position for most of this season. So I actually didn't go with Danny Rose, and I was going to use either Ashley Young or Delph in that position. If it was a flat back four, which I personally would play for England, I think you could use either of them. If it's a back three with a left wing back, I'd go with Ashley Young over Delph. But either way, I also included both Young and Delph. I also had Loftus-Cheek. I think it was a good decision for Southgate to include him. But I did go with Jack Wilshere. For me, it was between Wilshere and Shelby, as I've said, and I included Wilshere. Now, I had Lallana. There's no Lallana in the Southgate squad. He's got him down as one of his first backups, and I understand why, because Lallana hasn't played enough football. But if you've watched enough England football for the last few years, when fit, Lallana has been one of our best players. He does well on the international stage. But in hindsight, I do understand why Southgate didn't go with him. If I wasn't to go with Lallana, though, I'd swap him for one of the young wingers, right? I'd go with either Ryan Sessegnon or I'd go with Jadon Sancho from Dortmund, right? I'd have included one of them because we are a little bit weak in the wide areas. Lallana can play there as well as through the middle. Interestingly, on this Telegraph website, it tells you what 6 of their sort of favourite pundits think and what the general consensus of the fans is. And 54% of people had Lallana, and 6 out of 6 of the journalists they asked and the pundits all had Lallana as well. So it is interesting that Southgate didn't take him. And of course I had Dyer, Henderson, Ali, Lingard, Sterling. They have to be in there. I've got a little bit of an off-piece suggestion up front, and you've probably heard me say this many times on the channel before, and this is not West Ham bias. I'm telling you, it's not. It's not. I would have had Andy Carroll, and there's a very good reason for this. Even though none of the 6 pundits would have had him, and even though only 12% of the Telegraph voters agreed with me, I would have stuck Andy Carroll in there over Danny Welbeck. But only because I have Lallana or someone like Sessegnon or Sancho as another wide option, which could do the job that Welbeck might do. I would have gone with Andy Carroll, and I wouldn't have given him a single minute in the tournament unless we needed to. I would have had him on the bench every single time, and if something was going wrong, and I'm talking about what happened against Iceland in the Euros, when we played Iceland, we were exposed because we did not have a plan B. We could only play one type of football, and it wasn't penetrating them. If Andy Carroll had come on in that game, I don't know what would have happened. We might have still lost, but it would have given us another way of breaking the Icelandic defence down. We could have sent some long balls up to him, particularly in the dying embers of the game when we need to get the ball in and around the box. Carroll can win the knockdowns. Who knows what might have happened? Now, I know a load of you are going to think you're absolutely deluded West Ham fan, but I'm telling you, there is logic to the madness. Andy Carroll could be huge for us in this tournament if we need him to be. Equally, you could take him and he could never get anywhere near the pitch. I'm fine with that, but take him as an option. And to surmise, I think Southgate's squad is okay, right? I don't think it's unbelievable, but he didn't have unbelievable things to work with. He's done the best with what he's got. I'm just slightly worried. If I'm worried about anything, I'm slightly worried about a lack of creativity through the middle. no Wilshere, no Shelvey. Who's going to take that role on? And I'm a little bit worried about having no plan B going forward. And listen, some people would say Peter Crouch would be a better option than Andy Carroll as the big man up front. I don't mind that either. The only real reason I'd go with Carroll over Crouch is that Carroll could have more tournaments in him in the future if it ended up being successful, whereas Crouch, this would be his last hurrah. But Crouch has got a good goal scoring record domestically and internationally. So if people said, look, Spence, I like the plan B, but I don't like Andy Carroll, I would endorse the Peter Crouch decision as well. Let me know in the comments below, though, what your 23-man squad is. Who would you have that I didn't go with? Who would you have that Southgate hasn't gone with? What do you think of Trent Alexander-Arnold, Loftus-Cheek, no Joe Hart, no Jack Wilshere, no John Joe Shelvey? Let me know in the comments below. Drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed this one and you're excited for the World Cup. Also, let me know in the comments where you think England will finish in this World Cup. All right, subscribe for more. Make sure you click the notification bell. New videos going up all the time between now and the World Cup, when I'll eventually be in Russia following England all the way to the final. Could it happen? It could. Who knows? See you when you're older. Don't go changing.